All right, so this is going to be a crazy story coming out of the Hill, and I've seen this all over the place, but this is going to be about Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signs a anti-riot bill cracking down on public disorder on public property. That's my first issue with this. Again, you pay all these taxes, like for example, you pay for all these roads and everything else, and they don't actually fix the roads, but they want to tell you what you can do on the roads. You pay for all this stuff. You're being told what you can do on public property. And that's my first issue with this. This is actually written by the Hill, released on April 19th, which is today. And let's go ahead and get into this article. This is going to be a little bit interesting because I've been hearing about this a lot. And I haven't done a dedicated video about this, so I definitely want to go ahead and cover this. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican, on Monday signed a controversial measure known as the anti-riot bill into law, which aimed at combating public disorder. So you can be disorderly in public when you pay for everything outside, but he doesn't. Interesting. The bill, which goes into effect immediately, requires that cities receive approval from the state before cutting their police budgets, and it raises the charge for protesters who destroy historical structures, including flags and memorials, to a felony. So destroying something like a flag is now a felony. Unbelievable. Additionally, the bill grants civil legal immunity to individuals who drive through roads that protesters block off, makes blocking a highway a felony offense, and it prohibits protesters who are arrested during a riot from posting bail until after their first court date. Now, here's the several issues with that. Civil legal immunity to individuals who drive through roads that protesters block off. Okay, how do you determine who's a protester and who just might be caught up in the crowd? How do you determine that? On top of that, makes blocking a road a felony offense. Do you understand what police are going to use that for? Let's say that you are trying to film a police officer maybe doing something that is absolutely wrong, and the only way that you can film them is from the road. Now it's a felony offense. Now let's say that the same people who were in the George Floyd video who were being shouted at by that one Asian officer to get out the road. Now they're being hit with felony offenses just for being there to watch Derek Chauvin murder George Floyd. It prohibits protesters who are arrested during a riot from posting bail until after their first court date. That's unconstitutional. That is, you have the constitutional right to a speedy trial. Let me show that to you, because I know there's going to be some bootleggers out there say, oh, no, that's not the case. I'm going to show you. To a speedy trial. You cannot delay that. That is the Sixth Amendment. I knew that off the top of my head, but if I just said that, right? You say, well, will you just lead us into believing that? No. I said it and then I just brought it up. So you have the right to a speedy trial. The Speedy Trial Clause of the Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution provides that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial. To a speedy trial. You cannot delay that, Ron DeSantis. Let me read again. And it prohibits protesters who are arrested during a riot from posting bail until after their first court date. That violates directly the Constitution. You have a right to a speedy trial. You can't delay that because reasons. You can't do that. The legislation also increased the charge for battery on a police officer during a riot, upping the consequence to a minimum of 6 months in jail for assault on a police officer. Do you understand how many things are considered assault on a police officer? Let's say a police officer is trying to apprehend you and you simply just push away. That's assault on a police officer. One push away is 6 months in jail. Do you find that to be reasonable? That also violates the Constitution, okay? Because let me demonstrate that to you. Cruel and unusual punishment. The Eighth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states, excessive bail should not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Do you think 6 months for simply pushing away from a police officer, the officer could not be hurt during a riot? Do you think 6 months is reasonable based on what the Eighth Amendment says? When it comes to police officers, it just doesn't matter what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter what the law says, because you have politicians out there who will just protect them, lawyers who will lie for them, cops who will back up their buddies in freaking blue. You have judges who will sit there and just let them off on freaking murder. It's a zero-sum game, folks. There is a secret club and you ain't in it. George Carlin was right. There is a secret club and you ain't in it. Because if a police officer just comes and push you, he's not spending 6 months in jail. They made a minimum of 6 months in jail. And I gave you a very real scenario in which people have been charged with assault on a police officer because the police officer tried to apprehend them and they simply pushed away. The officer was not hurt. The officer was not physically damaged. But based under this law, that's 6 months minimum. Do you think that's reasonable? Who out there is going to justify this? I guarantee you there's going to be somebody out there who's going to try to justify this. The bill has passed on mostly party lines in Florida in the Senate. Mostly party lines, and it's already cleared the Florida House as well. This is a direct quote from Ron DeSantis. He says, if you look at the breadth of this particular piece of legislation, it's the strongest anti-rioting, pro-law enforcement piece of legislation in the country. There's just nothing even close. Yeah, it is a bootlicking law, basically. A bootlicking law. You are requiring individuals, counties within your particular state to ask for approval to cut budgets. That is not only tyrannical, but there had better not be a single libertarian out there justifying that bullshit. If a single community says, hey, well, we pay taxes, we want to do things our way. We don't want your welfare assistance. We don't want the ATF. We don't want cops. We don't want anything. If people decide to do that on their own, why should they not be allowed to do that as free people? Is that not the goal, ultimately, self-reliance? Or is it reliance on the government? Which one is it? I'm asking the more right-leaning people, the Republicans, the so-called libertarians, the right-wing facitarians. That's what I'm asking here. What do you want people to do? You have to ask your governor as a small town or a small city, small neighborhood, for approval to cut budgets on things that you're paying for. Do you understand how disgusting that is? How the founding fathers would look at that and spit on this man?